Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe, Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach on the Crusade channel. Always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in is online at crusadechannel.com. /chat. Please be sure to follow Joe and I, if you would, on our social media, Facebook and YouTube primarily. You could also find us on Gab and Rumble. The site or the name, the title we want you to look for is Frontline TV, particularly on YouTube. Frontline TV, as opposed to Frontline with Joe and Joe. That would help us out tremendously. Like, subscribe, share, hit the little bell, and do all that fun stuff. And again, a great conversation with you today on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online, because Joe and I are trying to assess the reality of the situation out there. No pie in the sky. We're not living in la la land. As Senator John Kennedy said one to one of the nominees, Joe, this ain't la la land. Okay. I love that guy. But this ain't la la land. And we're trying to assess the things as we see them. And then obviously we looked at people who are very smart, King Dude and many people like him out there who are offering solutions, signposts and then solutions. What are we looking, what are we fighting against? And then what do we do about it? Well, Michael Warren Davis has a really good suggestion. Again, attached, not detached from reality. So we want to talk about that vis-a-vis the culture war. And also Father Scalia. If the name's familiar to you, but you're not familiar with the particular priest, that's Father Paul Scalia, who is the son of the late Justice Antonin Scalia. He had an article in the Catholic thing talking about knowledge that blinds. That's an interesting conversation, Joe Resinello, because we're going to break it down when we get into it. But yes, knowledge can be blinding and in a really, really bad way. So with that, I want to hand it over to Joe Resinello, and we'll get this party started.
Excellent. As Joe said, we got a couple good articles to talk about. I think it'll spur some very interesting conversation. But the thumbnail, I think, relates to the one particularly by Michael Warren Davis out of Crisis Magazine. That article is entitled "The Culture War is Lost. Now What?" In that particular article, Mr. Davis refers to solutions which basically are driven through action. He says that we're no longer called to just be conservative. We're called to be reactionary. I couldn't agree with that more. And frankly, I think that relates very well to the title of our show tonight is Let Your Words Teach and Your Actions Speak. That's from St. Anthony of Padua. Little fun fact about St. Anthony. He was canonized in the shortest amount of time of any saint in the history of the Catholic Church. He was canonized in less than a year, 10 months. That man was canonized from death to becoming a saint. Little fun fact if you're ever playing trivia.
Well, that's why I have my little St. Anthony mug usually, right? I have the plain white one tonight, but usually I have the St. Anthony mug. Gotta love it. Gotta love the Dominicans in general, but you gotta love St. Anthony. But go ahead, Joe.
But no, St. Anthony was a Franciscan. He was actually a contemporary
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. He was a contemporary of Francis. They were, he was from, with the Franciscans from the very beginning. But he said, let your words teach and your actions speak. Now, I think that is very important. Listen, we see a lot of stuff in social media, people posting stuff, a lot of people talking, we're talking, a lot of people saying the truth. A lot of smart people out there, people writing books. I mean, on our Veritas Catholic Network show, we interview a lot of them. In fact, some of the brightest minds in the Catholic world we have interviewed, thanks be to God. Ultimately, though, if our actions don't speak, no one is going to pay attention. I'm telling you this right now. Everyone has heard of the Catholic Church, the Catholic line. Why don't people react to it? Why aren't hearts changed? They have to see it. I'm telling you this right now, and I base that statement and on my own experience, particularly with the Missionaries of Charity in the Catholic world. I've been Catholic my whole life. I've been to Catholic school. I've met a lot of people. I've met a lot of different orders. I have never seen a better example of evangelization than given by the missionaries of charity. And frankly, they don't use social media, they don't write books, they live the Catholic faith. It's action. And then, and I'm telling you, I've seen people get baptized. Actually, I've been godparents to people who lived horrible lives through the missionaries of charity. One of which read at my wedding. To be honest with you, he was a drug addict, a cocaine addict, and he led a gay lifestyle. And he got baptized and changed his whole life around. So my point is, the best way, if you want to change the culture, obviously you have to teach with your words. You have to say the truth. That's a given. But you have to live it. I'm telling you this right now. If we're
Well,
not living it, no one's going to listen.
and that's the thing, Joe. I mean, like we try to emphasize all the time. Okay, nobody's doing this perfectly. Okay, and we're trying. We know we're trying. Okay, and many are out there trying. But the fact is, if we open our mouths, okay, and somebody was to point out and say, "Well, Joe Pasillo, are you living a Catholic life?" Joe Resinello, are you living a Catholic life? So we have to honestly look at ourselves in the mirror and say, "Yeah, yeah, actually." Struggles aside, okay, yeah, we strive to live a Catholic life. In fact, we're successful in many ways in trying to be different from the world. We were both a part of the world, and we both live in the world, okay, as we all do. But I don't associate with this world. There's like, what is there to associate with? It's all lies and darkness, perversion. That's all it is. So yeah, we're distinguishing ourselves, but you can't hardly blame people, Joe. Let's say, for argument's sake, using the Catholic Church in particular, you can't blame them for staying outside of the Catholic Church when over 50% of Catholics are divorced, when over 50% of Catholics, more than 50% are contracepting, when over 50% of Catholics support abortion, and this godforsaken regime in the White House. Okay, you can't blame people for saying, "Well, why should I become Catholic?"
Well, that's right.
Catholic Church doesn't do anything to set these people straight. Doesn't seem to be teaching. Doesn't seem to be preaching, because people are just doing whatever they want. And that's the truth. And then when you say, "Well, where's our vocations? Where's our conversions? Where are the people that are actually listening to the church?" Again, a lot do. God bless them. And a lot of people say, "Nah, I'll sit this one out until the bishops and yeah, the Pope start opening their mouth." All
Well,
right.
it's
And not only
also,
start
I'll
opening
be
their
honest
mouth,
with you,
but
Joe.
bring
It
people to
begins
the
with
fullness of the
families.
Catholic teaching. I'm sorry,
It
Joe, go ahead.
begins with families, though. I mean, Catholics just go along with the herd. I mean, we're not supposed to be like, we're supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. Your life, I got news for you. You don't even have to tell people that you're Catholic. They should know it. And it has nothing to do with the cross around your neck and the Blessed Mother statue in front of your house. They should know it by the
Right.
way you live. I'm telling you this right now, and this is where we fail. And we fail because if we did do that, the world would change, because I have seen this with my own eyes. Why did Malcolm Muggeridge convert? He went to Oxford. I'm sure he knew what the church taught. In fact, I'm sure he was better read than 90% in terms of I'm sure he read Augustine. I'm sure he read Aquinas. He was a rabid atheist in the world. He changed because he saw the example of Mother Teresa. You see, that's what changes people.
Right.
You're not going to argue anyone into the doors of the church. You're not.
Right, but
People,
Joe, you're not going to argue them in. But the fact is that I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I mean, predominantly, we have leadership that's been feckless for the last 50, 60 years. Fact that, did they come to Mother Teresa's defense when Christopher Hitchens wrote a screed against her? In other words, and disparaged her. No, did anybody come out and condemn him? Bishop Barron says that, Christopher Hitchens, if he followed the dictates of his conscience, he's in heaven. This is one of the most anti-Catholic people of the last 100 years. Wrote a book about that same saint that you're talking about, Joe Resinello, on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online. And Bishop Barron doesn't say a word about it. And the rest of
but
the
I think
bishops
we're
don't say a
talking
word
about two
about it.
different things, though, Joe. Like that issue is the issue, but I'm talking about the example. Like it's two different arguments. You're right, but at the same time, if we don't love and live radically, no one will listen, even if you say the truth. They're just not going to.
Joe, I
And
agree with you
St.
on that, but
Paul
there's
says
sometimes
that
I got to
very
say,
clearly. St. Paul says it. He says, "You're just a gong." Like, if there is no love, you're a gong. You could have all knowledge, you could have all wisdom, you could put your body and put it into fire, you can give everything to the poor. If you don't exhibit love and live the Catholic line, no one will listen to you. No
Mhm.
one. I'm telling you this. I've seen it with my own eyes. But when you do that, they'll not only listen to you, they'll be mesmerized by you.
But Joe, don't you think at some point, I know you're right. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. Okay. Not even a little bit. Okay. But what I'm saying is that right now in the church, it's that those who are trying to do what you're describing don't even seem to get backup from our bishops. Those who are on the front line actually trying to do something with their actions, Joe. I'm not saying only with words, but with their actions and their words. We don't seem to get any defense. We don't seem to get any backup. Okay.
I
Now
don't
you're
even think
starting.
you need it though, Joe. I don't
I think
need
you do.
anyone.
I think Joe, I'm sorry, because leadership matters.
No, it
Leadership
does. I
matters.
think we're talking about two different things again. I'll be truthful with you. One person, one saint could change the whole world and has. I don't need the bishop to back me up. If I don't, if my life radiates Christ radically, I'll be honest with you, I don't need anyone to back me up. My actions will speak so loud and will stop traffic. You see, and the only way to do that is to empty yourself. You see, we're unwilling to do that. We're unwilling to live selflessly because, in order to live like that, why the missionaries of charity do it better than anybody is they empty themselves completely. They embrace radical poverty. They pray 4 hours a day, adoration every day, rosary, meditation, prayer, fasting, and they radiate Christ. If the Catholic world took their faith seriously and emptied themselves, I don't need anyone to back me up. My life will speak for itself. And in fact, the people who should be backing me up will change because they'll see Jesus. And that is how people change. That's why I always say saints change the world. That doesn't mean you don't speak the truth. You have to, but they're not going to listen unless your life reflects the truth. They're simply not going to. And people have to take that more seriously than speaking the truth. I'm telling you this right now. I see it on social media. I see it in people I know. We don't differentiate ourselves as Catholics. I'm talking about living charity, living, loving. Our lives are just like everybody else. And I'm going to tell you this, you might as well not say a word because nothing will be listened to. I'm telling you, that's why that's my opinion. And that's my experience, actually. It's like a father. Don't do as I say, not as I do. Kid's not listening to you. He's not going to listen to you. Kids, the best homily you can give a child is your actions. You could say everything right. If you don't come home at night, you don't pay your bills for your family, you cheat on your wife, you could say everything perfectly. No one's listening to you. Your kids aren't going to listen. And this is where I think we have to focus as Catholics on our spiritual life because it will bear fruit and then people will listen.
Well, let's get into Michael Warren Davis's article in Crisis Magazine, okay? Because let's face it, obviously, I don't want to say individuals. Let's say for example, we as Catholics, we seem to have lost the first, or this first part of the culture war, according to Michael Warren Davis. The culture war is lost. And I think the question, not the question, he's offering a solution to, which I want you to get into, Joe. Okay, what do we do now? Because he said the culture war as we know it is over. So I'll hand it over to you. I
Yeah.
mean, if we're going to prepare, I mean, we interviewed Ralph Martin recently. Okay, for everybody out there at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online, you know Ralph Martin. Ralph was talking about putting on what Joe's talking about right now. Okay, talking about the armor of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the helmet of salvation, and all the things Saint Paul talks about. This culture war is about to ramp up beyond belief. Okay, which ultimately, as we always say on the show, we all know it's a spiritual battle. But we need to have the armor, and I think that's where Joe's going with this. If you really want to win people, not to your side, I don't want to win people, Joe Ressinello, to my side or your side. I want to win people to the church and win souls for Christ. This battle is going to offer us an opportunity to do it if we do the right thing. So I want to hand it over to you.
Well, basically, as Joe said, the article is entitled "The Culture War is Lost," and he's 100% right. The author is Michael Warren Davis, and this is in Crisis Magazine. He basically said, excuse me, that it is lost. However, the war for our country's soul has just begun. He goes on, he says, the trouble is that most conservatives are not willing to change their tactics. We're going through the same old motions, donating to Republican campaigns, posting articles from Fox on Facebook, etc. I could call it the share and spend method. We're looking for champions like Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson to fight our battles. Absolutely the wrong approach. Again, I personally think you got to just be a radical Catholic. And again, talking is important. It's living. And he's talking about being a reactionary. And he gives an example. The big example in the article that he gives that I took away from this is about Catholic colleges. Now, he says basically, a lot of people go to church and they send their kids to a Catholic college. Well, why are we sending our kids to Catholic colleges in name only, as opposed to real Catholic colleges like Franciscan University, like Magdalene College, like
Christendom.
Christendom College? They're not and what he basically says, and I think he's spot on, they're not as prestigious in name, but in those schools, you will learn the Catholic faith. You will also learn about Western civilization.
Mhm.
But parents are more concerned. Again, we're not differentiating ourselves. They're concerned about, basically, he gives the example of like drinking lattes at Starbucks, dazzling their friends that their kids got into Georgetown or
Right,
Notre Dame. Not
right.
saying that you're not going to get some Catholic truth out of those schools. That wouldn't be fair, because there are good Catholic,
Well,
professors there.
we interviewed Patrick Deneen. Patrick Deneen was at
Exactly,
Notre
exactly.
Dame.
It wouldn't be
So
fair to say that.
we know
But
that hope is not lost, but the
no.
fact is they do resemble a secular school. Go
Oh,
ahead, Joe.
absolutely. That's undeniable. Because to be honest with you, I went to a similar school. There was Catholic, teaching there, and there was example there if you looked for it. But at the same time, let's put it this way, there are better authentically Catholic schools out there. But again, people want to say, oh, my kid's going to Holy Cross, my kid's going to Boston College, my kid's going to Villanova. It's a reflection of them. Prestige. People, again, we're being just like the world.
Right.
Christ was not like the world. Like if and being a disciple means you follow him. He wasn't like everybody else. If you're like everybody else, you're not following Jesus Christ. And that doesn't mean you go live on a hill. I'm talking about you're in the world, you go to work, but you should, and people should just know by what's the old song? They'll know you're Christian. What? By your love. You're different. You're just different. I've always said this, and this is a touchy subject. Show me your checkbook and tell me that does your checkbook show that you're Catholic? Now, I'm not talking about giving all your money away. I'm talking about, do you spend all your money on yourself? Show me your checkbook, and I should be able to say, just by your checkbook, that you are a Catholic. Because money is important to a lot of people.
Mhm.
God says you're supposed to love God above all things and love your neighbor as yourself. Show me what you spend your money on. Show me how much time you spend with God a
Right.
day.
Well, Michael Warren Davis points out in this article, along the lines of what you're saying. He says maybe Joe, and this is the way he's saying it is, maybe you don't really care. The example of you with the checkbook, or the example he gave in the article about a newly ordained priest that puts on the rainbow stole with the rainbow flag, and they're going to celebrate coming out day or whatever the case might be. And he basically says, the priest says, "Oh, I'm not all I'm doing is affirming the dignity of each human being." You're wearing a rainbow stole Father. You're wearing you're standing in front of a rainbow flag. You're affirming people in their sin. Please stop lying to us. Look, if you're going to do that, do it, but don't lie to us. You're not because I would affirm them in their dignity as a human being. I don't have to wear a rainbow stole to do it. Okay. Or I don't have to be standing in front of a rainbow flag to affirm the dignity of all human beings, because that's what I'm taught, Father, as a Catholic. So Michael Warren Davis basically says, when you get, let's say, alumni, he used Notre Dame as an example. Okay. But when you have alumni who hear about this, what do you think they're going to do about it? Nothing. They're not going to do a damn thing. Okay. So what they're going to do is, and then they're surprised. The way he put it is, you got your little Susie, I'm quoting, quote, little Susie comes home after freshman year talking about how the church should ordain women. As a sophomore, she declares that a woman has a right to abort her child. As a junior, she moves in with her boyfriend. And as a senior, she stops calling herself a Catholic. And he says, maybe you don't really care because, and this goes back to what you were saying, Joe, Christianity is just something you do on Sunday, and patriotism is just something, a game you play on social media. This culture war, Joe, has now, as he says in the article, the long march through the institutions that we've mentioned on the show a million times, it's over. It's over. All right, the march is done. They control everything now. Okay? And nobody's prepared for this battle because, Joe, I would argue that nobody's doing what you're suggesting.
Well,
Nobody cares, number one. And even if they do care, they're not doing what's necessary to prepare themselves for this battle.
Well,
And
that's
that's the truth.
exactly what Ralph Martin talked about. The reason why, to be truthful with you, they're getting destroyed is because they don't have the armor of Christ on. I mean, a lot of people don't even realize they're being destroyed because they are. They are. Their marriages are in the gutter. Frankly, they're not happy. They don't have peace. And they don't even know the answers. And frankly, they're not even open to them. I mean, because again, they're not willing to change. We have to show people another way. Ultimately, that's what I think will happen. We reference it constantly. Benedict XVI's radio address. He talks about the people of God, the remnant, will become brighter. People have to be shown another way, and then they'll listen. Because ultimately, the world is getting darker. And getting back to this article, he says we have to become, as I said in the beginning, reactionaries, meaning we don't go along. In fact,
Right.
we revolt. What's it called? Mike Church talks about it all the time. He talks about buying local. He talks about not using Amazon. Those are little things that all of us can do. Stop watching the NFL. I just saw something from TFP. It came into my email feed today. He says boycott the NFL. They recently came out with something. I haven't watched an NFL game in years, and I like football. I'm not watching. I'm not paying money. I'm not giving money to people that slap me across the face. If we did that, same thing with these colleges, Catholic colleges in name only. Stop sending your kids to them. If we did, it would change.
Right.
But we don't. You see, we don't. We just continue to be like everyone else. And frankly, I'm going to tell you this, all you people out there, that's not the way to heaven.
Right.
You're not getting into heaven being like everyone else, because I'm telling you this too, and this is Christ's words, and it was the readings from this week. The road into heaven is narrow. Jesus said that. Jesus said that, not me. And if you're like everybody else, you're not on the road to heaven. We're supposed to be on the narrow road, showing people, and that's what this article's about. Reacting, living your life. I'm different. I don't go along with that. I don't do that. We don't do that.
Let's encourage people, Joe, too, because unfortunately the word reactionary in my lifetime, all right, and in the lifetime of many people out there, all of our people listening to us at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Reactionary is a naughty, naughty word. And we have to start telling people, no, it's not. If you're saying that I'm reacting to change, you're right. I am. I'm reacting to really bad change. Okay. If you're saying I'm reacting to ideas, I am. I'm reacting to very bad ideas. We need to embrace the word reactionary. Okay. Yeah, status quo is fine when the status quo represents something that's good, true, and beautiful. And change is not good and needs to be reacted against when that change represents a departure from what is good, true, and beautiful. And we need to embrace the title reactionary. Look at the change that the left has brought us, and you're using the left primarily right now for the last 60 years, starting with the sexual revolution in the 1960s. Guess what? If you're not reacting against this change, you're on the wrong side of history. You're on the wrong side, and you need to be reactionary, particularly if you're Catholic. Particularly if you're Catholic, you need to be a reactionary. And what do we say on the show? What's the best way to be a reactionary? The answer is no. Yeah, we want to teach the 5-year-old. No, you can't teach a 5-year-old boy he's a girl. The answer is no. No, men don't get pregnant. The answer is no. No, you can't kill babies in the womb. The answer is no. Why do I have to give a defense to this, Joe? When it's so obvious, as plain as the nose on your face. That's the type of reactionary I think Michael Warren Davis is talking about. And we need to embrace it because what they're offering us is Joe, what do you want to call it? Pure evil?
Well, it is, but the reason why people don't is they want to be invited to the barbecue, Joe. You see, to what you're talking about, and I've seen this in my own life, people have turned their backs on me, even in my own family. I mean, when you embrace a radical Catholicism, and I'm not just talking about I'm talking about your life, embrace it, all of it. You are going to ruffle feathers. Your life is going to ruffle feathers. People are what is from Isaiah? It's read every Good Friday. He was spurned by men. Christ, he was spurned by men. You make people uncomfortable. Even your presence, not even saying anything, you make them uncomfortable, and people are not willing to do that. They
Right.
want to be invited to the wedding. They want to be invited to the barbecue. But I got news for you, and this is in the gospel. If they hated me, they will hate you. Blessed are they who are persecuted, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. No one wants that part, Joe. You see, to be a reactionary means you got to have that. And no one wants that. They want everything. They want their cake and eat it too. They want to be comfortable Catholics. They want to be like, oh yeah, I'm Catholic, but you know something? I'm going to go and go here and do this and do that. Well, get news for you. If you're really walking the walk, you're not going to get the phone call to a lot of that stuff.
Hey, Joe,
People,
you know what bothers me just historically though is that Catholics in America, obviously most of whom are sons and daughters of immigrants going back to let's say the early part of the 20th century, they had that. They had that in America. They actually had an authentic Catholic identity, particularly Catholics in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. In other words, when Fulton Sheen was the #1 show on television, okay, in the late 40s and 50s, okay, we had that in America. Notice we had a situation where we could be Catholic and still maybe not become rich or whatever, but much better life than our grandparents had living in Lithuania or Poland or Germany or Italy, okay, or these other European nations. They had that in America. And you know what they did? They all folded like cheap cameras, okay, particularly the hierarchy in America. They could be Catholic. They could be Catholic and live an authentically Catholic life and still prosper in America. The problem is the prosperity went to their head. But I want to touch on something that you brought up earlier, okay? And I said this a million times on the show. We brought it up with Ralph Martin, okay? Remember something though. See, the March for Life, Joe, every year, okay? That's a Catholic march. There are others there. I don't want to be unfair, okay, or uncharitable. That is a Catholic march. If it wasn't for Catholics, that wouldn't even exist. Okay. And you know who knew that? And I brought it up before is Glenn Beck and Charles Krauthammer. Both said if it wasn't for the Catholic Church, the abortion issue would have been long gone. It would have been settled law. We would have had to have dealt with it. Okay. The reason why abortion is still in the forefront of the American consciousness is because of what you said. Because those people went there every year and in other places too, but that's the primary one, the March for Life in Washington, scoffed at as Jesus was, mocked by the media, okay? mocked like Jesus was, okay, spit on, okay, looked down on, called all sorts of names. Those people are the ones that are responsible for abortion still being issued to this day. That's that witness you're talking about, Joe Resinello. That's Catholicism not laying down to the culture. As
But
let's say,
I
when
would say, and I've been to the march twice. It's important, no question. Uh, but if you ask me, that's the icing. It's the icing. To be pro-life is to not contracept. To be pro-life is to be not, to be honest with you, particularly in America, I can't speak for the globe, is to be against the death penalty. To be pro-life is to take care of old people. You see, that's the icing. It's easy to show up to a march with 500,000 people where everybody likes each other. It's hard to do those things. You see, if Catholic, and how's this for like something simple? How about we vote pro-life? We don't even do that. I mean, ultimately, the reason why we're not doing all those things is because we don't know Jesus Christ. If we knew Jesus Christ, we would do all those things, all of them. We don't know him. And we're not even working on knowing him. Ralph Martin said that very clearly. He said, we're saved through the Catholic Church, and that is a truth. He said also, if you don't know the Catholic Church, you're actively seeking the truth. How many people that you know, Joe Pasillo, when he said this is what I thought to myself. I didn't say it on the show, but I was thinking it. How many people that you know, their primary focus of life is to seek the truth? They're not in the truth. People, you know all types of people. So do I. I know tons of people. I know holy people. I know the worst sinners you could possibly imagine. How many people that you know are actively seeking the truth? I can't say I know many.
I can't
And
say I
but
know
this
many of
is
it.
my point. But that's the way to heaven. You see, this is the way to heaven.
Those who I knew, I could think of one person in particular I worked with a while ago. He was Jewish. He was an atheist. He was born Jewish. He to me was somebody who I could point at and say he was actively seeking the truth. And you want to know why? Because he didn't scoff at my Catholicism. And he was a rabid atheist, fist in the air. Hitchens was alive at the time, Sam Harris, all of it. Okay. He was spouting off all those lines. But one reason I know that man, okay, was actively seeking the truth. When he asked me questions about the faith, to the best of my ability, I was able to answer those questions. Okay. He wasn't mocking. He wasn't like snarky, cheeky, or any other word. He was actually asking so that he could be enlightened to know what, let's say, the Catholic Church teaches on a particular thing. And the reason why I bring him up is outside of him, Joe,
But no, it's the
not
truth.
many, not
But I
many.
thought of that as he was saying that, and because it's the truth, and it was a refreshing conversation. I highly recommend people to buy Ralph Martin's books. I think he's a spectacular voice in the Catholic world.
Well, that one, let's let everybody know that one is a church in crisis, a pathway forward. Okay,
Correct.
which you could get at Renewal Ministries or on Amazon.com. Obviously, we would recommend going on Renewal Ministries and don't make Amazon any money. But I like the way Michael Warren Davis he puts the finer point on this article. And then Joe, I think we should move on. We have a little
Sure.
while for our next segment. He says, now this is what I mean. This is what I meant. This is what I like, Joe, about clear thinking people, okay? And people who say it the way it is. He said, of course, this means conservatives will have to become something more than conserve. We have to become reactionaries who, quote, live in open revolt against the modern world, close quote. Now, this is what he says, Joe. If we are to win the culture war, that's what we have to do. Anything less will be insufficient to save ourselves, our republic, our civilization. And Joe, I would go one step further. I would also say, and our souls. Okay. We need to react against these things if certainly we're going to protect our families and everything else. And then he finally says, once perhaps conservatism was enough. It's not anymore. There's nothing left to conserve. We have to reclaim the third millennium belongs to the reactionary. Amen. Joe, it took them 100 years to march through the institutions. Okay. And you want to know what? I said this before on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Joe, we have the truth on our side. We do not have to wait 100 years to reclaim the institutions. All we have to do is say it, mean it, assert it, and then act on it. And we chase their asses right out of the institutions because they lie. That's why it took them 100 years. We tell the truth, which is Jesus Christ. That's why it'll take us no time. But we have to have some stones, Joe, or else we're just going to continue to lose.
No, I agree. I think here's the thing: to be a reactionary, um, is one thing, and it's important. I mean, again, going back to the old, like, adage, you don't go along with the crowd. We were talking about that, my wife and I, about, like, not having a phone for our kids. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, I don't care if she's the only person in the whole darn school.
Mm-hmm.
Get used to being different. Because to be, again, you have to be different. But you see, here's the thing, couple things. You have to be willing to pay the price to be different. We're not willing to do that. Also, we have to love the world. You see, this is another thing. We're supposed to react to them, but we have to love them. You see, this is not a war in a sense of, like, you know, World War II. The idea here is to win people to Christ. Christ was looking to win people to the Father. That's the goal. Like, while we react to things, the goal isn't to basically pummel them, it's to win them over to a better way. And the only way that that will happen is if we reflect in our actions love. We have to show it and not go along. As Christ said, if someone asks you to go a mile, go two. If they take your cloak, give them, like give them another cloak. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to go the extra mile. You have to show people a better way. And ultimately, that will win the world over. Like, I personally believe that Christ won the world over in a quote unquote defeat. He couldn't be defeated. He couldn't be defeated. They thought they defeated him. Wrong. They didn't. We have to be able to be willing to pay that price. And we're not. We're not. We go along. And it's not like I said, it's one thing to react. It's another thing to react like the Beatitudes tell us to react. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's, to be honest with you, I think our reaction will be seen and heard the loudest. That's my thoughts on it.
I'm not going to say that I disagree with you on that, but Joe, there comes a point where it becomes so violent. I mean, I think of the Cristero War in Mexico. Okay, those people had no choice. Those people had to fight. The same as those in the Vendée during the French Revolution. Okay,
Did Christ not fight, Joe?
no, no, it's not that. I'm not saying that he didn't
Was
fight,
his
but
example not more powerful than the Vendée and the Cristero movement?
no, I'm not saying that it wasn't Joe, but let me ask you. I'm asking. I'm not making a statement. Okay, but then what do those people do? See, when those people, and we're going to talk about blindness. Father Paul Scalia, he wrote an article in the Catholic. They talk about knowledge that blinds. Joe, what do you do with people? And I'm asking. I'm not offering an answer. I'm asking you. What do you do with people who are so blinded by their evil that they will just run roughshod over you, your family, and everybody else? What do you do in that case?
Well,
In the case
obviously,
of the
you have to
Vendians, in the
defend
case of the
yourself. I
Cristeros,
mean,
what do you do?
you can't listen. I mean, clearly you have to defend yourself, and that's actually a Christian teaching, and you have to defend the weak and the innocent. I mean, that's also a Christian teaching. But again, the only way to open people's eyes, there's that movie about the Cristero movement with Andy Garcia, that little boy who offered
Right.
up his life. Oscar Romero offered up his life. Joe, I got news for you. All the shots that were fired were not as powerful as that example. All of them. Not one. Like, that is what I'm talking about. Self-sacrifice is like example. You want to open people's eyes, hardened people's eyes. It's the example of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ could have crushed the Roman Empire. He didn't. He didn't. He laid down his life. You see, we're not, Joe, I got news for you. It's very easy to punch someone in the face. I'm going to be truthful with you. That's easy. Very easy. It's very hard to love somebody, especially somebody who hates you. That is strength.
Joe, this
It's
is a question I
also
struggle.
very hard to serve somebody who hates you. And that's what Jesus did. And that's why his example changed the world.
But Joe, I got to ask you a question though. Like, here's this, and I struggle with this question. I really do. Okay. But then what am I supposed to do in the face of evil? Because I can lay down my life. Okay. If I chose to, but then I cannot lay down my life. And this is an interesting question because I have a wife and now I have a son. Okay. Someone who's going to be my legal son in the next few months. Okay, you're right. And I guess if it was just me, I could lay down my life. But what happens when those who are opposing you, okay, are so evil and so blinded by their evil that you have the need to protect your family? And it's something I struggle with because I could turn the other cheek. I have the ability to do that. If somebody from Antifa, no matter how much I wouldn't like it, punched me in the face, I should turn the other cheek. Okay. In other words, and not act on what I really want to do, which is tear their face off. Okay. I get that. But what do you do when it comes to defending others, particularly
Well, I
members of
just
your
said
own
that there's
family?
nothing wrong with that. Like if someone comes into your house to hurt your family, you defend your family. And that's not going to be by turning the other cheek. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the example that's going to open people's eyes.
Hmm.
That's different. I mean, if a war is waged upon you, of course you're going to defend yourself. That's a given. If someone wages a war on my children and my wife, of course I'm going to defend them. It's not even like a thought. I'm talking about the path forward.
Hmm.
Scalia talks about blindness. Like, and like violence doesn't open people's eyes. Like it doesn't.
No, I
To
know.
be
I
honest
know.
with you, it just makes people more blind. Like, look at people, Martin Luther King, look at Mahatma Gandhi, who they changed a society. Like, there was no violence there. And I'm not talking about self-defense. That's different. Or even a just war. That's different. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the path from a Catholic perspective. All saints, Jesus Christ himself, he gave his life through selflessness. You see, we have to be willing. That's why I talk about checkbook. That's why I talk about basically, are you pro-life? Okay, show me your kids.
Mm,
Show me your kids. You're pro-life? Like, show me.
mm.
Show me. And frankly, this is what I mean. That's how we open people's eyes. Like, and that's what will change the world. Like shouting, isn't, or even physical violence is not going to change the world. It's
Mhm.
actions. And it's the radiation, like it's the power. Like I have seen holy people talk, like that guy who started Missionaries of the Poor. He's a Jamaican Asian guy in Jamaica, and he
Mhm.
started like an order. He was a Jesuit, left, and when he speaks in a room, dude, you could hear a pin drop. He's so holy, it's absurd. When holy people speak, no one says a word. When Mother Teresa spoke at the National Prayer Breakfast, she's talking to the most powerful people on the earth. She talked about abortion. Everyone gave her a standing ovation except the Gores and the Clintons. I mean, where does that happen?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
this is what I'm saying. And when they interviewed Clinton after the fact, he was smart enough to know. He's like, I can't argue with a life so well lived. You see, that's how you open people's eyes. Now, I'm not saying, again, getting back to the thumbnail, you teach with your words. It's important because if you don't say things, people don't know the truth. But
Right.
what will make them see is your life, your life's example. That's where you'll leave people dumbfounded. Saints leave people dumbfounded. They can't believe that someone would love that radically, that would live that radically, that would serve that radically. and then their eyes are open. And that's why people like St. Francis within 10 years had 5,000 Franciscans.
Well, let's talk about another saint, Father Scalia. He brings up Saint Patrick. Okay, now here's a radical dude.
Oh
He
my
wa- he wa-
gosh.
he was enslaved. He gets out of slavery. He goes back to the place where he was enslaved to go and convert the entire country. So let's face it, St. Patrick was a radical dude. So Father Paul Scalia, in the Catholic thing, he wrote this article, Knowledge That Blinds. And we only have maybe about 10, 12, 13 minutes, but we want to get into this a little bit. The breastplate of St. Patrick contains a curious prayer. Joe, I did not know this, okay? A curious prayer invoking God's power, quote, against every knowledge that blinds the soul of man. And what I like about Father Scalia, Joe, and then I'm going to hand it over to you, because he starts out that, let's stop listening to insipid slogans like knowledge is power. Knowledge, and that's the point of his article, knowledge isn't always power. Okay. What you do have to have knowledge of, okay, is right and wrong. But knowledge for knowledge's sake isn't always the grandest thing, okay? Especially in the modern world. Oh, the more knowledge we have to go to college so we could get more knowledge. And that you hear all these stupid things out there. Well, Scalia kind of blows a hole in that, Joe. I'll hand it over to you.
Well, obviously, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. You can go into any church in America from Hawaii to Maine, and you can go. What I would like to say is the daily mass. Go on a Tuesday at 7 a.m. in the back of the church from Hawaii to Maine, and you will meet people, rich and poor alike, who have wisdom. They live life well. They're close to God. They live sacramentally. They have active prayer lives. I have seen this all over the United States. I've traveled for a decade. I've seen it all over the United States. There is a difference between that and people who, frankly, are highly intelligent. And some people, by the way, who are highly intelligent, like Ralph Martin, like many people we've
Peter
interviewed,
Kreeft.
exactly, also have that. Now, what is it about that? It's Christ's grace and light. You see, we're empty as people, no matter who you are. And sadly, sometimes people who are most gifted believe they don't need God until they're sick, until they're close to death. But while they're here, they have everything. You see, there's a big difference. It's a lack of humility, what it comes right down to. It just is. But there are
Mm,
people who have no education, who are in the back of a church in a very poor town, could be any state in America. You pick it, from New Jersey to Arkansas to Iowa to Nebraska to Louisiana, doesn't matter. They have no education. They live a better life. They're more joyful. They have more peace, and they know God.
mm.
And frankly, they don't fall for the nonsense that the world falls for.
Well,
Why is
that
that?
well, that's what Scalia was talking about. He says, take for example, just to give an example. Okay. Well, most of the time, Joe, because here, this should answer your question, because those people, let's say, they know the truth of, just using this as an example, man, woman, sexuality, and marriage. So if you see those people, they have knowledge and wisdom because they know what these things are. Obviously, they know the natural law written in their own heart. They know the difference. They could see, they have eyes to see. They're not blind. We're talking about blindness here, okay? Because Father Scalia, he brings up the contraceptive mentality, okay? So he says, with widespread acceptance and the use of contraception, we thought we had obtained a knowledge and know-how better than anyone before. In fact, the contraceptive mentality has blinded us to what our ancestors, or I would say, Joe, those same people who you're talking about in the back of the church somewhere in West Virginia or Nebraska, okay? They don't have PhDs hanging on their wall. They don't even have bachelor's degrees hanging on the wall, but they know the truth of man, woman, sexuality, and marriage. Now, that's just one example that Father Scalia is given. See, the enlightened ones, all right, and I think that's really what he's getting out here. This has been a problem in the world since the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment raises man's mind over that of God's. And that's the problem, okay? And we say because we have more knowledge. You know who said it right, Joe? T.S. Eliot said it right. He says, "We're closer to knowledge, no nearer to the truth."
I'll
And
buy that.
I always thought I read that line maybe 20 years ago. I think that's in Four Quartets of the Wasteland. I forgot which one. Closer, think about that. Closer to knowledge, no nearer to the truth.
Well,
And Eliot used the word truth to mean Christ. Eliot, he meant Christ. But the point is, see, knowledge is a wonderful thing. The Catholic Church embraces knowledge and the exploration of human knowledge and the furthering of human knowledge, but not at the expense of the truth. And I think that's what Eliot was talking about.
I call it the art of living. I think of some people, to be honest with you, in my own family, married 65 years. They took care of their family members. They had far from perfect kids, but they loved them anyway. They went to church. They worked hard. You see, heaven is full of people like that, full of them from all over the world, the four corners of the world. You see, it's the art of living. Our minds and our lives are enlightened by grace, and it's not from us. You see, it's from God. The key is to open yourself to it. We don't do that. We're so sophisticated that we closed ourselves off from the source of everything. Christ says this very clearly. If you do not eat my flesh and drink my blood, you will have no life within you. That's here. That's not just in heaven. That's here. You won't see clearly. I don't care where you went to school. I don't care how smart you are. There are people that are illiterate that live better lives than you. There are people who don't have 3 cents in third world countries that are happier than you. That's a fact. And why? It's not because they have some gift. They have God. They have peace. They're not afraid to die. You see, this is the gift that Christ gives to the world, and the world has rejected it from the beginning. They
Mhm.
killed him. Ultimately, though, what will change some is when they see that. You see, when you see that, either you will change or you will be so repulsed by it, you will run faster than you could ever run away from that.
But you're using the word see, Joe. You're using the word see. People are blind. Father Scalia said people are blinded by their own blindness. Can you imagine how dark that must be? See, what you just said, Joe, was true. But the thing is, but those people have to make some sort of a movement in their life. I mean, towards God in some way, so He could work on them to open, so that the scales which blind them fall from their eyes. But Father Scalia is saying they're so blind, they're blinded by their own blindness. In other words, that's really what he's talking about. He brings up Bartimaeus, the blind Bartimaeus, said, "Lord Jesus, have pity on me." Okay, where I mean, he was in that position. He knew to cry out to Jesus, "Son of David, have pity on me." People now, the way he says it, quote, "It blinds even as it claims to give sight, and thus renders us blind to our own blindness." That's so spot on, because that's the world we live in. We started talking about the culture war, the spiritual battle, the things we're fighting against. Are completely effing blind. Okay. And they don't even know it. They claim that they have all the sight in the world. They claim they're smarter than you, Joe Rossinello.
Well, they
They claim
are.
they're smarter than me and the
I
rest
mean,
of the rest of
in many
us.
respects, they are. I wouldn't even deny that. I mean, if you gave us an analytical test, they're much smarter than me. But that doesn't mean they see. You see, and here's another thing.
That's the
And
key.
again,
That's the key right there.
yeah, like
That's the key. That doesn't mean they see.
right. I mean, what I would say to people is this: it's take a step back and look at the fruit of some of these people's lives. Look at the life that they live and the fruit of it. Look at other people's lives that follow God. And I mean, really, every time people like point to the drunk priest or something like that, or, like, I'm not talking about that guy. I'm talking about the person who's really doing it. Look at their life. I have seen people like that. You go to like some of these like events with like the CFRs, and you see families. Are they perfect? No, no one's perfect. But their families are alive. They have loving homes. Their parents like each other. Like they have children and everyone's laughing and having fun and they're joyful. And people don't take medication to go to sleep. And people don't drink themselves stupid every day. Like this is what I'm and take medication to self-medicate their pain away. This is what I'm talking about. Step back and look at the lives of people, and that should say it all to you. But it doesn't, because we double down on our bad mistakes, because we won't change. We lack humility. We lack humility. We won't say these simple words, I'm wrong, or more so, I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Well, Joe, unless we start as a nation, as a people, as a church, unless we start saying, no, I'm sorry, I am sorry, and I was on the wrong path. Lord, I need you. Well, not for nothing. We care about everybody's soul. We worry about our own souls. Okay. But as far as the temporal realm, as far as our nation, as far as our civilization, our society, our culture, we're toast. Unless we're willing to do that. And this way, maybe we'll gain, by the grace of God, Joe, we'll gain the knowledge, true knowledge, and the true sight needed to fight the battles for what? So we could have lower taxes, so we could have better wages. Okay, those are good things. There's nothing wrong with that. No, so that we could have a society within which we could have we have a society that lives attached to the truth, not detached from it, and a place where the conversion of souls and the conversion of sinners can take place, rather than this swamp that we're living in, and this abyss we call our American culture. I think that's. I think you hit the nail on the head. We need to open our eyes. We need to say we're sorry. We need to invite God back in, and then we need to let Him give us that sight that we need. Joe, I think we might have to
Another
leave it
thing
there.
that Ralph Martin said that I thought that was a great conversation. And I can't say enough about the guy, because to be truthful with you, he speaks the truth and he has a lot at stake because he's a big name. God is permitting this. You see, God knows what He's doing. Life is a mosaic and you don't sometimes see it all. Like God knows what He's doing. We have to just play our part. What's our part? Live the truth, speak the truth, teach the truth, and suffer for the truth. And we do that by staying close to Christ. We do that by having an active prayer life, living a sacramental life. And frankly, in doing that, you'll have joy. You, even if you have a tough go in this life, there will be peace. Joe, I sleep very well. I sleep very well. I'm just telling you. So my point is, that's what we do. In the meantime, the battle belongs to God. He'll right the ship and He knows what He's doing. We just have to do our part. And if we do it well, I think in the end, we'll contribute to a greater and better America and a better world.
Joe, I couldn't think of any better place to leave it. So we want to thank you all for joining us at the Frontline with Joe and Joe on the Crusade Channel, your home for the Mike Church Show, Crusade Channel News, the Barrett Brief, and the Kennedy Profession. From sun up to sundown, the Crusade Channel is the last live radio station standing.